one thing I would just pick up, because we didn't really cover it in the negotiations piece, but between the model itself, what you're calculating on the grid and what you're delivering out the door, there's one obscure election within the initial margin document, which is the termination currency, which everybody has in their ISDAs with their counterparties at the moment, which has no bearing on day-to-day function. It's something you agreed in 1992, if we're going back that far. It's probably dollars, it's probably sterling or euros. It only matters on default. Each of the regulations has stipulated that termination currency is now essentially your settlement currency for your collateral. So if your termination currency in your ISDA is dollars, then the haircuts applied in your collateral schedule under the regulations can be set at the base minimum. If you're posting something other than that base currency, you have to add an additional 8% haircut. Now, the majority of counterparties we've seen in the previous phases have no idea what their base currency is today and whether or not they would like to change it. Between at least HSBC, we are a global bank, we've got 4 different base currencies, depending on where the ISDA was signed. And what we would do is suggest that we would elect a different termination currency between both counterparties. So counterparty A can elect a counterparty termination currency which they would prefer to post in. So let's say I only post in US Treasuries, I'm going to want a US dollar termination currency. But if it's HSBC, maybe it's sterling, maybe it's Japanese JGBs out the door every day. Maybe we would prefer to elect a Japanese termination currency. Now, that obviously still doesn't have an impact on our day-to-day workings, on how the ISDA functions. But what it does do is it gives us relief on the collateral that's being posted out the door, that we're not being charged an additional 8% haircut on that collateral amount.
I was just going to make two really quick points on that, actually, is that it is the case that historically in a lot of ISDA master agreements, when people kind of were writing in what the termination currency was, they would stipulate a currency, but then they would also put in this line saying, or such other currency as the non-defaulting party union may select, etc. So now the margin rules themselves, I think this is true for the US and EU, UK, right? Says it has to be a single termination currency. So this kind of line where it's dollars, or if I fancy something else, I can let you know that's actually not margin rule compliant. So if you have got that old line in your ISDA, it needs to be amended anyway to be margin rule compliant. The second point as well, and I think we see a lot of confusion, is actually this termination currency for the purposes of where do I apply this 8% haircut on the IM, it's actually the other party's termination currency. So say, for example, if I'm facing Jakia and Jakia wants to post JGBs, Jakia is going to ask me to have as my termination currency the Japanese yen. And we've actually, in the 4i checks that we've done on agreements, we've picked up so many that people have kind of got it the wrong way round. But actually, it could have a really big impact. I think as well, though, when you set up, certainly when you're using tri-party, you set up the eligible collateral schedules, you do put the relevant termination currency there. So, so you need to make sure that matches. Sorry, Hannah's looking